Hi. So the second show I want to look at today about UFOs is, of course, the X-Files. So classic TV show from the 90s, all about UFOs. Other things too, but the UFO story was the key sort of holding it all together. And I want to look particularly at an episode called Jose Chung's from Outer Space, which was the 20th episode of the third season from 1996. So this is a classic episode of the X-Files. It starts with a young couple, I guess. They're driving late at night and they see a UFO, which lands in front of them, and three, I can't remember, aliens come out. Sort of classic grey aliens, with the big heads and the big eyes, sort of a bit like this guy in my t-shirt. And they come out and the couple are abducted. So it's about alien abductions. This episode, it gets crazy. It's also played for comedy as well. It's a very funny episode. It has a lot of fun with UFO stories. There's conspiracy theories. It turns out some of those aliens might actually be humans in costumes and suits. There's another set of aliens that might actually be real. And the two main characters of the show, FBI agents, Dana Scully and Fox Mulder, they investigate this alien abduction of this young couple and go down the rabbit hole of various conflicting stories and recollections of the event. So it's a great episode. I think what I want to focus on, because it has lots of UFO stuff in it. There's Men in Black, there's the conspiracy theories, all that sort of stuff. But I want to look at the alien abductions in it. So the central sort of the starting point of the episode, the young couple being abducted, is based very, very closely on the original alien abduction, which was of Barney and Betty Hill. So they were a married couple, American. They allegedly, they believe their story took place in 1961 in September. So they were coming home from a holiday in Canada, I think it was. They lived in Boston, and they were driving through the White Mountains of New Hampshire when they saw a UFO at night. The road was totally deserted, so it was just them and this UFO that was following them. So they got freaked out. The UFO appeared to actually land on the road in front of them. Barney got out to have a look, and he saw that there were sort of figures of occupants through the windows of the UFO, and he freaked out even more, obviously. Like I would too. Got back in the car and they sped off, and the UFO took off and followed them. And the next thing they remembered is that they don't remember what happened next. They actually kind of fell asleep or lost consciousness. They heard a beeping sound, and that was it. Everything went sort of hazy. And when they regained awareness, it was 2 hours later, and they'd sort of forgotten what had happened in that time. But in the months that followed, this experience played on their minds, and they both started having terrible dreams about things that may have happened to them in that missing 2 hours of time on board the UFO spaceship. So it got so bad that they actually went and saw psychotherapists in the end. They got referred to one psychiatrist in particular called Dr. Benjamin Simon, who was practicing in Boston. Now, he was a specialist in hypnosis. This is the key thing. So he'd been working with the US Army during World War II, where he used hypnosis to help soldiers who now we would say had PTSD get over bouts of amnesia or over other anxiety symptoms so they could go back to battle, basically. Dr. Simon was convinced that the UFO sighting that the Hills reported was not real. He thought it was like a fantasy that they'd, not necessarily made up on purpose, but it was covering up some kind of deeper trauma. So he was going to use hypnosis to uncover that, to get rid of the UFO story and find out what was really getting to them. But a strange thing happened. When he used hypnosis on them, both Barney and Betty independently remembered being taken into the UFO and being experimented upon, just like all the classic stories we now have about UFO abductions. And because back then hypnosis was understood to be more like a sort of total recall tool, like it was like rewinding the tape or going back on the timer and reliving with absolute accuracy and clarity what happened in the past. This is not how we see hypnosis now. We know people can easily make up stuff under hypnosis, and I think back then too that was also known. But Barney and Betty Hill, they believed then that these memories they had of them being on the UFO were real. So they left against Dr. Simon's wishes. He thought they needed to do more work, but they left believing they were abducted by aliens. And that became the core story, the archetype for all alien abductions since then. And we see this in this episode. So Later on, one of the characters from the car that were the two young people who were abducted at the start, they are taken to a psychiatrist, or is it a hypnotist perhaps, and they, under hypnosis, also remember being taken into the UFO and having experiments done to them. So this is not something that was just made up by the X-Files. This is based very heavily, very grounded, very solidly in real UFO history, which is kind of cool. And the other thing I just want to say too about Barney and Betty Hill is that the X-Files was not the only TV show that was influenced by them. There was another TV series in the 60s called The Flintstones, which was kind of like an animated series like The Simpsons of the time. And there were two characters in that called Barney and Betty Hill, Barney and Betty Rubble. They were based on Barney and Betty Hill.